We are in the Gospel of John, and today we're in chapter 18. And if you're new to Bayside and you're thinking, I don't know John's Gospel, I don't know anything about chapter 18, we're going to make it really simple. Today we're talking about answering the big questions. When you get to, quite literally here, a crossroads, Jesus is almost at the cross. When you get to the crossroads, what are the big questions that you need to answer? And you're going to meet 4 characters today, and they all had to answer a question about Jesus. So let's go to our emojis. Do you all love our emojis, everybody? They're pretty cool, these emojis, aren't they? So here's emoji Jesus. Can we give it up for emoji Jesus? People are unsure what to do. I've never. Okay. And then can we give it down for Judas? Thank you. And then we got Peter, who's in denial mode, all right? And this guy here, not everyone's heard of him. He's one of the big characters in chapter 18. This is a guy called Annas, and he's like the high priest. So he's the religious leader of the day. He hates Jesus, really hates Jesus, wants to kill Jesus, but he doesn't have that authority. The man who has that authority is Pilate over here. So he's Jewish leader. He's the Roman leader. He's the one that really has authority. He is the executioner, so to speak, okay? So here's all our guys. As you notice, that 4 of them, they all go to the same Jewish barber. They've all got the same hairstyle there, okay? Just keeping it real. And so these are our characters today. So what we're going to do, we're going to start out with Judas, okay? And we're going to talk about him. And we've got the 4 characters, 5 characters with Jesus, and you just got to try and identify who you are today. But I can tell you this, in these stories, you're not Jesus. All right, let's just make that clear, all right? You're not the victim. You're not Jesus. You're one of the other, or maybe all 4. So let's talk about Judas. We're going to start reading here at the beginning of the chapter, and here it is. So Judas came to the garden. Jesus has left the upper room. He's now in the Garden of Gethsemane, guiding a detachment of soldiers and some officials from the chief priests and the Pharisees, the religious leaders of the day. They were carrying torches, lanterns, and weapons. Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen, went out and asked them, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. It was dark, it was dim, they couldn't see. He says, "I am he." And Jesus said, and Judas the traitor was standing there with them. And then this is like a Jedi moment. Look at this. When Jesus said, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. Because he uses like the name of God at that moment, Yahweh, the great I am, and they're like, boom, and they all fall to the ground. Again, he asked them, "Who is it you want?" "Jesus of Nazareth," they said. Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. If you are looking for me, then let these men go." As a Christian pastor, I get to do what's called child dedication. Some churches call it a christening. We call them a child dedication. And I've done like interesting dedications in my time. At one point, I dedicated quadruplets. 4 babies, the same age, all, and that was like some holding. I've dedicated children with interesting names, but in all my time of dedicating children, I've never dedicated a little Judas. Oh, his mom and dad really love him, so they give him the name Judas. Devil baby, you know. It's never happened. We don't call anyone, unless they are a betrayer, we don't call them Judas. It's the most unpopular name in the world. If you go to any poll of the top of betrayers, Judas is always there. People have betrayed through history. Brutus, he betrayed Julius Caesar. He said, "I love you, my friend, but I love the Republic more," and he betrayed him. In sports, there's some people who betray. What do you call this guy? That's right, Judas. That's what you call him right there. He betrayed the world of cycling. That's what happens in life. Some people betray. I came across this week the term best friend. Okay, look at this here. Best friends has 11 letters. That's really cool. But so does backstabber. And it's when a best friend becomes a backstabber, you go, what is going on? This is just like too sad. So why did Judas betray Jesus? Why did he betray Jesus? Well, his name was Judas Iscariot. And some people think that Iscariot is the Semitic version of a word called Sicarius. And a Sicarius at that time was someone who was an assassin or who carried a dagger. So Judas, he was a volatile sort of chap. He was like the freedom fighter of the day. He was like a terrorist that was saying, I'm ready to overthrow Rome. And he was attracted to Jesus because he thought, oh, Jesus is a fellow revolutionary. And also some of Jesus's followers, they were known as the Sons of Thunder. As he was thinking, I'm in the right gang here. We're going to overthrow the Romans. But when Jesus failed to do that, and when Jesus became like a pacifist and said, I'm not going to do violence, it was like Judas was really disappointed. And this is sort of like the thinking in Judas's head. He said, I'm not betraying Jesus. Jesus has betrayed me. Have you ever been disappointed in God? Judas was disappointed in God. Well, he didn't believe Jesus was God, but he was disappointed in Jesus. And he was going, I'm not going to take this anymore. And actually, Jesus is getting in the road because of some of my friends, my fellow disciples. They're the best in the land. They should be leading the revolution. And Jesus is distracting them. And guess what? We're going to get Jesus out of the road. And I'm going to ask you this question. What do you do when you get betrayed? What are you going to do in your life? Because in this life, you are going to be betrayed. And this is the thing. I want you to write this in. Can we, in our notes, can we swap betrayal for blessing? That's the big question when it comes down to Judas. Are we able to swap betrayal for blessing? What do we do with that in life? And I would simply say this, and this is the Jesus style. How did Jesus swap betrayal for blessing? Here's the answer, everyone. Focus on healing instead of hurting. Focus on healing instead of hurting. Jesus said these words, but Jesus answered, no more of this. And this is Luke's account of it. And he touched the man's ear and healed him. Well, what's that about? Well, what happened was that after the reading we just read about is that it all kicked off. Peter went crazy with the sword. It was like Dublin late on a Friday night, everyone, okay? Too much Guinness, and it's all kicking off. And Peter, he said, you're not going to take Jesus. And he takes out the sword, and he's not a very good shot, and he cuts off a guy's ear. The guy's name is Malchus. And Jesus is like, whoa, stop it, everybody, calm down. Literally picks up the ear, and he puts it back on again, okay? It would have been really awkward for glasses for the rest of his life and stuff like that, just one ear. And Jesus picks it up, puts it back on his head, and Jesus said, will you stop it? This betrayal is going on, but I'm not going to get sucked into this. When betrayal happens in life, it's like we get bitter, we get angry. What are we going to do in life? I would submit to you, this is what Jesus did. We got to focus on what? Healing instead of what? Hurting. Healing instead of hurting. When I was living back in Belfast, a pastor, we were a weekend service, all organized, and I got a phone call on a Thursday night saying, oh, would you like a guest preacher or a guest speaker this weekend? I thought, oh, that's a bit late in the day to get this. I said, well, who is it? And the story was explained to me. A young girl called Kim lived in Vietnam in the 60s and the 70s. And she was in her village and in school, and she was told, a warning came into the class, you've got to get out of the school, and actually you've got to get out of the village altogether. Why? Because the bombs are coming. Napalm is coming and you need to get out. And she started to run out of the main road from her village, trying to just get away. But the bombs landed beside her and she got caught up with them. A photographer was there, an American photographer was there, and he captured what was one of the most iconic photographs of the 20th century. And we're going to show this to you because many of you will know this. This is little Kim, and literally her clothes were burned right off her. Her flesh was burned. How many people have seen this photograph before? It's in history books, it's in your school books. It's there, pretty incredible. And she ran down the road, and she was left with these terrible scars on her body for the rest of her life. But she came to our church on that Sunday, and for 4 services she just blew our minds away. And this is what she said, everyone. And this is her today. She says, my life helps heal the hearts of others. It was the fire of the bombs that burned my body, the skill of the doctors that mended my skin, but it took the power of God's love to what? Heal my heart. Isn't that amazing, everybody? Isn't that just beautiful? Look at me. You're going to get betrayed. You're going to get hurt in life. But are you going to become a herder, or are you going to become a healer in life? And what Jesus was saying here, I've been betrayed by Judas, but Judas is not going to have the last word in my life. Betrayal is not going to have the last word in my life. What am I going to do? I'm going to become a blesser in the midst of betrayal. And there's only one way that you can do that, my friend. You can have the heart, you can have the aspiration to do that, but it's only with the help of Jesus can you turn betrayal into blessing. So that's one of the big questions we got to ask in our life right at the crossroads. What are we going to do with that? So that's Judas. Let's jump to Peter. The question with Peter simply is this: can I swap a wishbone for a backbone? You see, we all want a backbone in life. We all want to stand up for a big cause, but many times we got a wishbone. Oh, I wish I was stronger. I wish I was. Peter, he had a wishbone where he needed a backbone. And see, it came to the crunch. Peter was a big talker, privately, big talker. But publicly, he was a denier. I want you to think about this for a second. Judas got disillusioned. He didn't believe in Jesus, so he naturally betrayed Jesus. But Peter did believe in Jesus, but he denied Jesus. Let's read about that, because the Bible says that he denied him 3 times. Here it is. You aren't one of this man's disciples too, are you? This young girl asked Peter. He replied, I am not. Where's all of this happening? Just listen to this here. Judas over here has betrayed Jesus. Because Judas has betrayed Jesus, Jesus has been taken to this guy's house, Annas, the high priest. Peter has also gone to that house, but he's not in the court, in the main sanctuary of the house. He is in the courtyard watching at a distance, and people are looking at Peter and thinking, I've seen you before. Meanwhile, Simon Peter was still standing there warming himself, so they asked him, you aren't one of the disciples too, are you? He denied it, saying, I'm not. One of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him. Didn't I see you with him in the garden? Again, Peter denied it. And at that moment, a rooster began to crow. Jesus had prophesied this. Peter in the private room had said, I'll never let you down, Jesus. I will follow through. And Jesus said, before the rooster crows, you will deny me what? 3 times. This is what I find in life. Some things can change us. Some things can just change us in life. Like time. Time changes us. Is that correct, everyone? Time just changes us. I don't care how often you're going to the gym. It's all going south, everyone. It's just all going south. It's all collapsing. I don't care what you're doing, okay? It's not happening, okay? I mean, even for Barbie, it doesn't work out. We just saw this. Here's Barbie at her 45th high school class reunion. It's all come apart. It's all come apart, everybody, okay? Yeah, Ken's going, what? No, it's just, okay, stop it. But the other thing that can really change us is pressure. Because in private, you know what? I just really believe that I'm incredible, but often in public, I capitulate. And pressure comes to all of our lives. Pressure comes on our morals. Pressure comes on our ethics. It comes on our religious beliefs. So how do I get rid of a wishbone, a floppy wishbone? And how do I develop a backbone, something that's going to stand and help me in life? Well, here we go. How to develop a backbone, okay? Well, number one, I would say it starts with convictions. What I believe. I've got real convictions in my life. How many people would have believed that Peter had real convictions? Yes? Did it sound like he had convictions in life? Yeah, he had convictions in life. And we think to ourselves, if I have the right convictions, well, it's going to lead to this. Ultimately, it's going to lead to a thing called legacy, okay? What I leave in life. How many people here want to live an average life? No, we don't. We want to live a life that's going to make a difference, that's going to make an impact. So we think to ourselves, if I've got great convictions, if I believe the right stuff, then I'll leave the right stuff in the form of legacy. But there's a gap still there between conviction and legacy. Well, we need to do some stuff, and we're going to call that, action. So we want to have this big legacy moment in life. We want to have the right actions, everybody. It came down to actions. Conviction to get the legacy needs something called actions about what I do, but there's something else, everybody, and it's this big one here. Write this in if you've got any blank space. Character. It's about who I am in life. You can have everything else, but if you don't have character, you're going to have the wrong actions. What Peter had was the right convictions, but he had the wrong actions because he had zero character. He just had a lack of character in his life. I'm going to take you back 2 weeks, everybody, and it was all about this. It was about suffering. It was about trouble. Jesus said in John 16, in this world you will have what? Trouble. Where do we get godly character from? We get godly character from John chapter 16, Romans chapter 5. We get it through godly suffering. And at this point, Peter didn't want to suffer. There was a lack of character in his life. Where else do we get godly character from? We get it from Acts chapter 2, because we see Peter in a completely different light in Acts chapter 2. He suddenly becomes the hero. He suddenly got a backbone. Where does it come from? At that moment, he was filled with God's Spirit at the Feast of Pentecost. He stood up with a backbone and preached to the crowd of thousands. And that day, 3,000 Jews became a Christian. What changed in Peter's life? I'll tell you what changed in Peter's life. He got a backbone where he used to have a wishbone. I'm going to ask you, are you going to get a backbone instead of a wishbone? Living your life thinking, maybe this and maybe that. And suddenly, like Peter saying, you know what? I'm going to stand up for Christ. I'm going to live for God. Third person is this. It's this guy over here. It's Annas. Are we going to swap religion for a relationship? Are we going to swap religion for a relationship? So as I said, this is the religious leader of the day. He's the third main character here in the story. He's the guy that hates Jesus. Let's just read a little account of what's happening here in the story. It says, meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. I have spoken openly to the world, Jesus replied. I always taught in synagogues or at the temple where all the Jews come together. I said nothing in secret. Why question me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they know what I said. Have you ever looked at some things in life and never noticed something, but later on, when someone points it out, you go, wow, I've always looked at that, but I've never seen it. It's so obvious. It ever happened? How many people like Baskin Robbins? Baskin Robbins? Yeah, come on, put your hands up. Admit your guilt, everybody. Would you go on, admit your guilt. Your hand up. Baskin, here it is, everyone. It's got 31 flavors. How many people have ever noticed the 31 before? Oh, people are like, wow. Spiritual revelation. I'm so glad I came to church. Oh my goodness. There it is. There is a God. Who still can't see the 31? Who's ordering ice cream right now online? Okay. So there it is. How many people have seen the Amazon logo before? That's not a smile, everyone. That's an A to Z. We deliver everything. I'm like Buddha. I'm like Confucius right now. There's light coming off me. There's just like... I put all this preparation into a sermon, all this study of Jewish culture, and you remember Amazon and Baskin Robbins. That's it. We love our Swiss chocolate in Europe. You also get it over here. Toblerone chocolate, yes. Yeah, seen it there before. How many people have ever seen the bear on the mountain? Oh. It's all happening at Bayside today, isn't it? People are taking notes right now. What about this one here? What about this here? You ever seen this before? Look carefully, everyone. A lot of people for many years have looked at this and all they've seen is a soccer ball. It's a football, everyone. I'm just going to bring you. It's a blow your mind. It's a football. It's a ball. It's a ball. It's circular. Ball is circular, and you kick it with your foot. Come on, everybody. Okay. Why? With Annas, he could not see the wood for the trees. Do you know what he lived for? You know what his whole life was given to? He was living for the Messiah. He was living for the promised one, the anointed one from God, the one who would come and deliver Israel and bring salvation to the earth. And he was standing in front of him. Everything that he prayed about, worked for, studied for, hoped for was standing in front of him. But it was God incognito. He was God in disguise. God turns up not on a stallion, a chariot, a cloud. He turns up as a carpenter in emoji Jesus. And he doesn't see him. We have a thing here at Bayside. It's called the Apologetics Conference. The Apologetics Conference, everybody. What's that about? What's Apologetics Conference? Is that a conference for men who need to learn how to apologize to their wives? Sorry. Everyone say so sorry. Is that no? Apologetics simply means this. This is a conference that's really going to help you explain your faith. You go, well, why do you believe in the resurrection? Well, it's in the Bible. That's not a good enough excuse. That's not a good enough reason. You need to have some reasons for it. And if you're here today and you can't see the wood for the trees, and you're either blinded to the fact of God or it's all a little bit blurry, the best thing that you could ever do is come to the Apologetics Conference. Because at the Apologetics Conference, we explain to you our reasoning for our belief in God from science, from history, from the critical texts. And we just encourage you, get along to that conference. Don't be like an Annas and say, you know what, I'm just going to say, there is no God, crucify him, I just wish he was dead. No, if you haven't done your homework, and he hadn't done his homework, how much regret did he have in eternity that actually he looked at the living God but ignored him? The big thing for him, and ultimately that was for him, man, ditch your religion. And you know what? Religion doesn't have to be organized religion. Sometimes your irreligion you can be more religious about your irreligion and not having it. And God says, I want to give you a relationship. He couldn't get his head around this. He just couldn't get his head around it. Our last character today is the big one, Pilate. So notice this. We start out with Jesus who's praying in the garden. We have Judas who interrupts it with betrayal. And then what do we have? We have Peter that comes in with denial. And then we have Annas, and he is what? He's cynical. And now our guy Pilate, he gets all tactical and political. At this point, the whole Jesus trial should have stopped immediately. Now, Pilate, he's the Roman governor. Now, let's just be honest here. These Romans, they didn't get the Jews. They're like, we're Jews. We're like taking over the world, and we just come on this people group, and they love their temples, and they're bringing in these lambs and pigeons, and they're sacrificing everything, and there's blood everywhere, feathers and, wool. And they never shake your hand, and they're always washing. They're always aloof, and I'm not getting involved in all of their politics. And this is what they said: all your temple stuff and all your weird customs, you're in charge of it. That's why you're allowed temple guards that went to get Jesus, but you're not allowed to take them to the cross. You don't have ultimate authority of execution. Slightly devolved government, but we're really in charge. So Pilate says, you know what, whatever it does to do with your little law, you deal with it. And they thought, we've got to get Jesus on something else. We've got to get him on a charge of treason. That's the only way we can get him killed. And with that, we've got to take him to Pilate. So Pilate said, I'm not going to get involved in your little laws. But when he heard that some Jew was claiming to be the king, he goes, I get that. I get that. I understand that. And there's one king, there's one boss, and that's the emperor, Caesar. That's it. And we can't have another one. He says, so bring this would-be king to me. And they bring in Jesus. They bring in Jesus. And at that moment, this king has no followers. There's no one with him. And Pilate looks at him and goes, are you really a king? Come on. Come on, just say you're not a king and I'll let you go right now. And Jesus said something to him. Well, you know the truth. And these are some of the big mistakes that Pilate made. First mistake that he made was he didn't believe in truth. He didn't believe in truth. Because he turned around in verse 38 and he says this here. He said, oh, what is the truth? He sounded like absolute millennial Californian. What is the truth, man? What is truth? You're a judge. And you don't believe in truth. Look at me, everybody here today. We do believe in truth. Every single person in this room believes in truth. We believe in absolutes. This is first responder weekend, and every first responder knows that we got to believe in truth. That when injustice happens in our lives, we want what? Justice. And you can't pick and choose your own truth. There's only one person gets to do that, and that is God himself. And all truth is submitted under him. And so he said, I don't really believe in truth. That was his first mistake. His second big mistake was he didn't listen to his wife. That's a bad mistake right there. He didn't believe in truth, and he didn't listen to his wife. I would say those two things are almost the same. Are you with me, man? Please nod. How many men have had the truth delivered to them via their wife? Yes? She normally speaks truth. You see, what happened was in the middle of all of this shenanigans that was going on, he got a text message from his wife. Like a beep at the side. He looks at it. Be careful. That guy Jesus. I haven't slept all night because of him. There's something about him. He's righteous. He's godly. Don't do anything stupid with him. And you would think to yourself, you know what? You're standing looking at truth himself. His name is Jesus. And then you get a big truth text from your wife. You think, you know what? This is all over. Let him go. But why did he change? Why did he follow through with the crucifixion thing? There was no evidence. Judge Judy would have thrown this out immediately. She's amazing. My mother loves her. Oh, she's like Judge Judy for president. Who would vote for Judge Judy? That guy would. Okay. But why did he keep the case going? Why did it continue? Third big mistake, everyone, is that he only listened to the crowd. He only listened to the crowd. Why did he listen to the crowd? Why did he do this? The crowd is pretty incredible. Hurricane Florence just happened there on the East Coast. And it's one of those interesting things. Not everyone leaves. I mean, so like the weathermen are saying, there's a hurricane the size of Africa. And it's coming, and it will be the worst storm ever. Even Noah would go, wow. I mean, this is going to be awesome. This is incredible. And people stay. Now, there's a bunch of people stay, and this is very true. They stay because of poverty. Because they can't afford a bus ticket, they don't have a car, and they don't have anywhere to go to. And they stay because of poverty. They're locked in their home because of this. But there's other people stay, and they stay for various reasons. And there was an interview on the BBC with a psychologist, an American psychologist, and they were just asking him, why do people stay? When they've had this like weather warning, why do they stay? If it's not for poverty, why would people stay? And the interviewer simply said this. They basically said, well, first of all, some people, they just suffer from over-optimism. Oh, everything will be okay. I've always been great. I've always been fine. It's rained around here before. And they're just like, they're full of this over-optimism. I've always been all right. Okay, well, that's silly. And then other people, it's uncertainty. They just get like a paralysis comes into their mind. Well, I don't know if I should go, and there's more danger running away, and they're going to be leaving my property. And there's just all of this uncertainty, and they get locked in it. But there's a third group of people, and they stay because of what's called herd thinking. They just got caught up in the herd. And so like the man and his wife are looking out through the blinds of their house at the rest of the neighbors, and they're going, well, the Smiths are still here. And so are the Johnsons. The Johnsons haven't left either, so everything must be good. Like the Smiths and the Johnsons understand hurricanes. And they're just like looking at it and going, well, everyone else is hanging around. Well, we'll just hang around too. Duh! Get out of there! Look at me, everyone. Don't follow the crowd. You weren't born to follow the crowd. And in terms of the biggest decisions of your life concerning Jesus Christ, you can't follow the crowd. You got to make your own decision. And Pilate just heard the crowd, and heard the crowd, and heard the crowd. And he should have done the right thing. He knew the right thing to do, but he went with the volume of the crowd. And that's a killer every single time. This is what Pilate did. It's described in Matthew chapter 27. He gets some water, he pours it over his hands, and does this public stunt where he says, I wash my hands of Jesus. It's your decision. I wash my hands of Jesus. High schoolers, look at me. You can never wash your hands of Jesus. You can never look at the crowd and say, well, it was my husband, it was my wife, it was my children, it was my neighbors, it was the pressure of people that I never followed through. You can't wash your hands of Jesus. I can't wash my hands of Jesus. It's your decision. It's my decision. You can't turn around today and say, oh, a church hurt me. Maybe a church did hurt you, but it's not about the church. It's about Jesus. And I'm going to ask you today, who are you in all of this? Who are you? Are you saying today, well, you know what? I'm the Judas guy. I am Judas. And I need to do something with the way I betray or the way I cope with betrayal. Are you Peter? And you're saying, God, please give me a backbone in my life. Are you this guy here and you're cynical? That's okay, but don't switch off. Are you saying today, do you know what? I'm going to push on through this. Or are you this guy here and you're just saying, I'll live for the crowd. I just live for the crowd and nobody else. There was a book written in the 1970s. And it was called Future Shock. And there was this really smart guy, and he was just looking at the world. I mean, this is pre-internet. And he said, the world is just getting so really complex that people are having to make way more decisions every single day than our parents ever did. Our grandparents just would have their boards just would have fried. It's just, they couldn't have coped with all of this. Life used to be so predictable. Change was predictable. Now change is always unpredictable. And so he said the future generation, not even knowing about the internet, they're going to have to make what's called a super decision. A super decision that will help them with all other decisions. Because once you make the super decision, all the other smaller decisions are made. Let me just, for example, I made a super decision, it was a super decision 25 years ago, to marry Isabel. That's called a super decision. That's called a really smart decision, okay? A super decision. And so that determines what I do every Friday night. I never on a Friday night thinking, well, I wonder what girl I'm going to go out with tonight. I never have to think that. Why? Because I made a super decision, everyone, that sorts out every Friday night. Well, actually, every Monday night, Tuesday night, every night is looked after. Because are you getting what I'm saying? So here we are today. With all of these decisions, you know what these guys needed to do? Just make the big super decision. I am going to live for Christ. You got a lot of decisions to make in your life. A lot of decisions about your finances, your income, job prospects, career, college, spouses. You got a big decision to make. Please, everyone look at me. John chapter 18, we're coming to the cross. We're in the end zone, everybody. I'm using American football metaphors because I love you. Don't know what I'm talking about. Don't even know where it is, but we're in the end zone. Are you with me, everybody? We're going to answer the big questions. We're going to make it the super decision. If you're not a Christian, You got to make a super decision. If you are a Christian, look at me. Please, this is not a Western add-on. Bayside's not a thing you do. Jesus is not your butler. He's not your trainer. He's not your personal coach. He's not your financial advisor. He's not just another thing in your life. He is the Lord of the universe, everybody. He is your super decision, all guiding light, your true north. That is Jesus, everybody. And if you answer that question, you answer every other question. Won't you close your eyes? Won't you bow your head? Please stay in your seat for a second. Don't be disturbing anyone. This is an important moment. I'm going to give you that opportunity right now. If you're here and you're not yet a Christian, it would be wrong of me today not to give you a moment to make that decision, the super decision to follow Jesus Christ. All these 4 guys, they choked. When it came to the big moment, they all choked. I know you won't do that today. So if you want to become a Christian, would you simply pray this prayer for me? Come on, Bayside people, let's be in prayer. Would you pray this prayer for me, with me today, just to make that decision? Here we go. Just say these words into yourself. Dear Lord Jesus, thank you that you came for me. You went to the cross for me. Thank you, Jesus, that you didn't choke, but you followed through. Jesus, I ask you for forgiveness. I receive your salvation, and I ask you, Jesus, to be my Savior and my God forever. Again, with your eyes closed and your head bowed, in just a moment, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you prayed that prayer. But we always say this at Bayside. When you raise your hand, we'll never embarrass you. Nothing freaky goes on. No lights flash. It's me and you. So are you ready? If you just made that super decision and you prayed that prayer with me, would you right now just raise your hand? Put your hand up in the air so I can see it. Just put your hand up. Thank you over there. Thank you. Put your hand up so I can see it. Put your hand up. Thank you. Don't be scared at all. That is so, so good. That is so good. Come on, Baysiders. Let's put our hands together and really encourage these people.